Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. The one basic misconception that most people have with me is that I've created my story. They think that I've created my story and I'm doing it for the purpose of gaining fame through being a YouTuber or something like that. I believe, that's what they think I'm doing. Or there's some people that just think that I'm just a complete fool and I just say things. They don't understand I'm actually doing something. So some people think I'm just a complete fool and I don't know anything at all. And so they don't pay any attention to what I'm doing whatsoever. But then the other people that are out here, what they actually think I'm doing because I'm making videos, they think that I'm trying to gain attention, that I've created the story. But that's the key. What actually happened is I had a discovery, I saw something which led me to leading to an investigation. So I want to explain to you guys the actual beginning, how it happened. I've explained it in my number 2 video. If you go all the way back, that'll be a different version. It'll explain other things. But this is just going to be the TCM version and stuff. So it all starts basically with this. It's a channel on one of the cable channels called TCM. It's Turner Classic Movies. And so that's Ted Turner. And I'm just going to tell you some things so Ted Turner, what he did was the movie studios like Warner Brothers, something like that, the big ones, they sold the rights to all of their old catalog of old movies. It was a massive catalog of movies. Like the Michael Jackson fans as we sit here, how Michael Jackson acquired the Beatles, okay? Things like that come for sale, And so one of these things that had come up for sale was this massive catalog of old movies. And so Ted Turner purchased that. He purchased it and he became the owner of this large, vast amount of old classic movies. So what he did then, because Ted Turner at that time, Ted Turner started CNN, the cable news network. That's like Ted Turner. And so he was from Atlanta and he was doing, TBS was Turner Broadcasting Station, and TNT, I think, was a Turner Network Television, I think, something like that. TBS, though, the Turner Broadcasting, that was his main one because he also owned the Atlanta Braves. Back then, in the 90s, the Atlanta Braves were really good, and all of their games were always on TBS because he had that and he always aired their games. It was really cool. So that's just a little bit of the history of the TCM and Ted Turner. And Ted Turner also, he was married to Jane Fonda, an actress, okay? Big actress. She's part of the actress dynasty. Her father, Henry Fonda, is a great classical actor. One of the really, really greats. Henry Fonda would be a person that most people would really just like Henry Fonda movies and the way he is in his movies. He's just he's a really good classic American movie character. He's all kinds of good stuff. So Henry Fonda had Jane Fonda, and Peter Fonda also has a brother, Peter Fonda. Peter Fonda is famous for making the movie Easy Rider, which that's the movie about the motorcycles, which has that really famous motorcycle with the American gas tank. I mean, classic Americana stuff, So that's Easy Rider. That's the movie Easy Rider. That's, Peter Fonda. That's the Fonda family. So Jane Fonda was married to, if you go to Jane Fonda too, there's a thing about her, they call her Hanoi Jane because there's crazy stuff with Vietnam with Jane Fonda. She was really political and stuff and an activist. So she's got all kinds of history too. When you learn these people's history, there's so much history, and I can only just touch on things they would have, when they would tell their stories, it would be in-depth stories. And so Ted Turner, though, okay, so that's what happened. Ted Turner's an interesting person in American culture and history. And like I said, he was married to Jane Fonda, and he had purchased the movie thing, and he had started this channel, TCM, Turner Classic Movie Channel. Okay, see Turner Classic Movies. So that thing was there for a long time. I wasn't into the old movies at that time. I wasn't into the old movies. What had actually happened in my life was Michael Jackson died. After Michael Jackson died, it's a thing that had happened and it affected me. And then so when Michael Jackson died, two key things happened that I was never aware of, that I was going to get this information, because I wasn't thinking Michael's going to die and this stuff. So the key things that happened was that Diana Ross was in Michael Jackson's will as a significant role as a guardian to Michael's children after Catherine. And then that's all there was. There wasn't any other Jacksons. It was just Catherine, and then there was Diana Ross was there. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, wow, Diana Ross, because I had known the whole history. But when I heard that she was in his will, that was one of those things that was like, wow. But then also, see, I watched the memorial. So I watched, and I actually recorded it when it happened. I have a recording of the memorial. And so I saw when Smokey Robinson came out and read the speech from Diana Ross. So I was there, I was watching it, and I was shocked. I'm like, how is Diana Ross not here? So I actually, right when that happened, I recognized, what's going on? Diana Ross is in here? To me, that was instantly. So I watched the memorial and all that stuff, and then it just goes on. I'm not thinking she's the mom. Those are just things that now, information that's in my head now. Okay, I don't know how it's going to develop later and stuff, but what happened is these things, they come to you and you get your pieces of information, and then when it was time for it to develop, that's what happened. So what had happened, it was about 6 months after, 6 months after is when I watched the movie Lady Sings the Blues. But so probably a couple months before that. But so let's say a few months after Michael had passed away, I started watching TCM, and I remember the exact day, and I know the movie that I watched. And it's the movie called Lust for Life. And that would be like a biography movie about Vincent van Gogh. Okay, so I love Vincent van Gogh. And one day I was sitting there, I was like, oh, this movie's coming on called Lust for Life on TCM. I saw it was about Vincent van Gogh. That's what drew my interest, okay? I wasn't interested in watching old movies or nothing. But that movie ends up being the great stars in that movie. And the director of that movie is Vincent Minnelli, who is the father of Liza Minnelli. So there's all these connections. So right there and there's I even showed another thing that Michael Jackson actually attended the funeral of Vincent Minnelli. So it's one of those weird things that in history, the actual movie that got me into actually watching TCM is Lust for Life, which was directed by Vincent Minnelli, which in real life, that's the father of Liza Minnelli. And Michael Jackson actually attended the funeral of Vincent Minnelli. See, these little connections, there's things that are connected, weird little things like that, right? So I watched the movie Lust for Life, and it was just phenomenal. It was so, so good. And just pure art and beauty and just the acting, everything about it. I was so impressed with how good that movie was, Lust for Life. It was so, so good. And, at that time, I'm already missing the movies that are starting to transition, and I'm not liking the movies that are coming out already so much. But so then, it was really good. Then right after that, another movie was coming on called Rembrandt. And it was another biography about Rembrandt, the painter. And it was starring Charles Laughton. And so I watched that movie. And this was an older movie too, the Rembrandt. It was even an older movie. So it was pretty sure that one was in black and white, where Lust for Life's in color. So that's another thing. You see those older movies in the beautiful color, and it shocks you when you see like how old back those beautiful color movies actually go. And but so then I saw the Rembrandt, and I was just so impressed with that too. What a great movie. And at the end of that movie, Charles Laughton says a line that I think is from it's supposed to be a line from, it's like it's a Jewish, I think it's like King David. I think it's like King David from it's an Old Testament line. And I think they say he was like the wisest man of all time, something like that. And so at the end of the movie, Rembrandt states a line where he says, "Vanity, vanity, all is vanity." And that line, it's and then I've learned the history of where it comes from, and it's so that's just a line that it's a thing that I take really because if you people ever seen the movie The Devil's Advocate, at the end he says vanity, definitely my favorite sin. See, because I already had that information in me, so I knew that the vanity thing of how that's how he fed into the whole thing with the Devil's Advocate movie was through vanity. And then so when I seen that movie with the Charles Lawton, when he said the vanity, vanity, all is vanity, that line just really was really impressive, and it always stuck. And I learned that I think that comes from, I think, like I said, I think it's Old Testament, like King David. It's supposed to be something like that. So I'm just saying, these are just interesting things you come upon. There's just interesting stuff, and so after I'd seen the Rembrandt, so I saw that one day. I saw Lust for Life, then I saw Rembrandt, and I was just so impressed. And then that got me into watching TCM. And then at that time, there was a host, the number one host on TCM, a guy named Robert Osborne. And Robert Osborne, he was around Hollywood for a long time, and he had a really good the presence of a host. The way he was just perfect. And then so there was like a few years there. Well, actually, so at that time I started watching. I've been watching now I've watched for years, and I watched with Robert Osborne until he passed away, just maybe a couple years ago or something. So I was watching until that time, and for years I was watching all those, and I got to watch Robert Osborne, and I got to hear him explain all this stuff about movie history. So I learned so much stuff. There's just so much stuff there, and it was all through TCM. I've learned so much. But what happened was on TCM, so I was watching a lot of TCM. So this is then about 6 months after Michael passes away. The movie Lady Sings the Blues, which is Diana Ross's first movie, and she's younger. So it's like around 1972, I think it was released. So, they're filming it probably around 70, 71, probably around that time, and she had a look to her. When I was watching the movie, it was nighttime, and you know it's like when you're in a theater and it's dark, and there's the thing about watching the movie in the dark where compared to the daytime. So I got to see that movie at night, which that helped too, being it set the right attitude and everything about it, the atmosphere. And so I was watching that movie, and then there's just a part where Diana Ross is singing. Now, like I said, this is about 6 months after Michael's passed away. And so what happened, I'm watching that movie, and I'm watching it, and I'm seeing Michael Jackson in Diana Ross. It's like morph. It looked like Michael Jackson in drag. I wasn't seeing Diana Ross anymore. This is like how severe it was. It was like a vision. But I know other people have seen this stuff too. But you can say it's a vision, but I think it's more of I saw a clarity. Right? It's not like a vision. I wasn't out of my mind. I was clear and I was present and I saw something clear, but you're seeing something that's not actually there. That's what's the weird thing about it, right? So I was watching her sing, and like I said, I wasn't seeing Diana Ross anymore. I'm actually seeing Michael Jackson. So this is actually how it happened. This is how it happened. This is why I'm here. The whole thing. So then I watched that movie, and so what happened, I'm watching it there, and like I said, I was watching it so much where I was seeing Michael Jackson. So that's the moment where in my head, I said to myself in my head, oh my God, could Diana Ross actually be Michael Jackson's mom? Okay, that's how it all happened. I was watching the movie, I started seeing Michael. I wasn't seeing Diana anymore. I was seeing Michael Jackson. And it was like, whoa. And it was so clear. And it was like I said, I wasn't seeing Diana. I was seeing Michael. That's how whoa. It was like, wow, whoa. And it wasn't for a second. It was clear. I stood up and it kept showing this to me. This is what I was seeing. I could not see it at that point. I saw it. Okay. So then at that point, also, then I had the thought. I was able then to have the thought because I had the funeral knowledge that she was in the will, and I knew the letter that she had written that she didn't show up to the memorial, and I knew their long history, right? So after having all of that stuff, what happened at that point when I saw that, I actually had the thought. What come into my head was I actually said, could Diana Ross possibly be Michael Jackson's mom? Somehow, is that what's going on? And then so I watched the movie, then after that, I went, boom, so first I checked the birth dates, and then that's how it all started. I started this long investigation. Then through that, so right there, I don't have, here's one thing. There's no Smokey Robinson at that time. I don't know anything about that. I don't have that in-depth knowledge of Diana Ross and Smokey. I didn't know any of that stuff, okay? What happened through the investigation was, okay, well, if Diana Ross is pregnant, because then I saw it could be possible, so I started checking out her environment, right? And then what I learned was then I saw the videos of her talking about Smokey, and then that was the exact time. And I started seeing the stuff, and that's how I started looking at Smokey. Then once you look at Smokey, I looked, and that's how I saw with Berry Gordy that Smokey met Berry Gordy in August of 1957. 1 year before Michael was born. So then I saw that connection, that's how that led to that. So I didn't make this stuff up. This is how it leads to that through all of my investigation. Boom, and it leads to that and leads to that. And then with the Berry Gordy, what happens was that Berry Gordy was a boxer. I found out that he was in the Golden Gloves, and I think I had known that Joe Jackson was in the Golden Gloves. So then I started searching that, and then I found out that they're like a similar age, and that they were fighting in the Golden Gloves at the same time. And then you find out that after that, they both develop interest in the music business, and then I go into a long history of how much development of what I found out. It's massive amounts of stuff, of information and stuff that I found out through Chicago, that the connection is that Gary, Indiana is right there by Chicago, and in Chicago there's a place called Chess Records, and there's a lot of connections through Berry Gordy to Chess Records, like massive connections, and then you find out that Joe Jackson had the Pookie Hudson who went into the Spaniels. And then you find out that the Spaniels is considered as the first original doo-wop group. So actually the style of music that Berry Gordy created with Motown actually is accredited to Pookie Hudson from the Spaniels, where you have a front man with a few guys singing in the background. And that's the group that Joe Jackson was in. So I found all these connections. I didn't put them there. I didn't create any of that stuff. This is how I just went looking. I went looking, and then I tested myself, and I challenged myself every time. I would always say, can I prove myself wrong too? I challenged everything, and that's where I've come into YouTube, and I've gotten good because I got people to challenge me. I have gotten a few people to challenge me good. And because of that, I was able to really go into where the Diana Ross, where Michael's saying he would marry Diana Ross and a few things like that, and then the supposed love affair. I have just went so in depth into all of that stuff, and that's why I proclaim Michael as a virgin, because I have when people talk about research, okay, I've done real research. I've looked into all of these people involved, and there's all kinds of connections, and I have more knowledge just because of being older, and I have all this other knowledge too. Like I said, I just have other knowledge, and it will help me, and that's how I developed this story. And that's what I'm just trying to get out. If people would just understand the one thing, that I didn't make this story up to try and come to YouTube. And then here's the other thing. So this started 6 months after Michael passed away, and then I had developed a pretty good solid story about 6 months after that. And I actually came into YouTube at that time, and I had bad experiences and stuff, and I technically wasn't good enough, sharp enough on my story at that time. And then had bad experiences. YouTube was crazy back then, and so we had stuff and all this stuff. But actually one of the people too is Perl Jr. I did encounter some things with Perl Jr. way back then. She's one person, so that's why when I talk about her, one of the things is I actually have some history with her from way back then, and there's all kinds of stuff. So actually been around here a lot more longer than you people know, and I've had people try to test me, and I've overcome, and my story's solid now. That's what I'm saying. I proclaim, I come out of here now and I say, man, I've looked upside down, inside out, all ups, over and out, and I'm telling you, my story now, I'm way beyond the point where I need to prove it to myself. I've proved it now, and now everything I find is just it's just jewels and diamonds and buckets of gold. All the information, it's all there for me to see and explain now. All of it. Because now it all tells my story. And that's the way it is. My story's real. It's true. Like I said, I've even explained Billie Jean, where I named Billie Jean, even to where my stories went so far out, where I proclaim that Macaulay Culkin is the father of Paris Jackson. My story's all encompassing. I've got it all. I'll prove it all. And I got all the real facts and all the knowledge and all the real details of everything. I just need people to care. That's all. And here's the other thing. It's I've come to the Michael Jackson. That's the thing, is I'm here in the Michael Jackson community. What more should you have asked me to do? Like, I could go out and buy and publish a book on my own and start doing it that way, and I could just do stuff like that where I don't even have to go find a publisher. I could just publish a book on my own. Okay, and I could hit the ground and start doing stuff like that. Okay, but why do that? Isn't the whole purpose of everything, shouldn't I be here in the Michael Jackson community? Because what voice matters more than anything, right? Would be in the Michael Jackson community. So why am I being attacked for being in the Michael Jackson community, trying to, let's say here, deal with my story? Here I am. If you guys care about Michael Jackson, and there's got to be some experts here, why am I being shut out? My story's not being dealt with whatsoever. People do not deal with my story. They just say you're wrong. Boom, they don't deal with it. Shut me out, block me, and everybody rises up, block him. That's what there's a loud voice against me for just telling my story. So that's why I had to come out, because the voice started building up against me. So I just came out and said, if this is the way it's going to be, then I'll come out for all of you. Because this is not going to be stood for with me, because I know I'm right. And if you guys are against me, you're against Michael Jackson, and that's all there is to it.